Hi, this is Rakesh Khurana, Down-off Dean of Harvard College. As you know, we've been piloting these sort of few-minute snippets with members of our community. We've done some with our faculty colleagues, and I'm absolutely delighted today to change up the pace a little bit with our wonderful, wonderful students, beginning with Jasper Johnston, class of 2020. It is so good to see you. I can't tell you how much it just brings such a smile to my face to see you. How have you been?
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's wonderful to speak with you, Dean Khurana. I've been well. I'm currently located in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada, here with my family, and yeah, fortunate to be here and just wrapping up classes, which is hard to.
Yeah, well, I hope everybody's safe and healthy. I know this has been quite a challenging time for our world, and for so many members of our community are affected both in direct ways, but also indirect ways. So,
how have you been?
Fine, thank you for asking. It's like probably everybody else, still kind of the things blur. Terms like weekend seem to have lost their meaning, and days and time. And I'm sure you're in a different time zone than the Eastern time zone that you usually are in during campus. So, just getting used to all of those things.
Yeah.
But tell me, I know, first of all, that this is not the way that any of us had hoped for or had expected spring to unfold. How did you respond? And how have you adapted to the challenges?
As you acknowledged, for many students, it was a very difficult transition moving away from campus. And for me, I actually woke up to receive the email with the news after working until 3 a.m. on my thesis, which I was handing in the next day. And it was quite something to go from that sort of intense academic focus to realizing, wow, this is a situation that's so much larger than ourselves we need to respond to and come together as a community to address. And I think those last few days on campus, it was, although heart-wrenchingly sad to be leaving campus in that way under those circumstances, it was absolutely incredible to see the college community come together, students, faculty members, administrators, coming together to support one another and really made that transition possible. And as I mentioned, I was able to leave and come back home to Canada, where I'm fortunate to be. Everyone's been healthy so far. And I think really through this time, it's been obviously an adjustment, but through the social continuity on Zoom of maintaining club meetings and community gatherings, HOCO meetings in Elliott House, and other events like that, alongside our classes, seeing our classmates several times a week, the transition's been able to be a lot better than I think we might have expected, but obviously still challenging at times.
Sure. You used the word community, and I think, it's one of those terms that we use a lot at the college. But it's also one of those things that's easily taken for granted,
Yeah.
Just the day-to-day interactions and the serendipity and the, just encounters that you have with folks. What are the things that you're finding that are effective to sort of sustain some sense of community? What are things that surprised you about how you and your peers and classmates are interacting? I would just be interested as the dean of the college, as a faculty dean of one of the houses, and also to compare your experiences with my kids.
Yeah, there have been many different ways, obviously through different forms of technology. And I think the largest thing that has to be acknowledged that we're missing, the word that you used was serendipity, I believe. And it's the interactions that we don't necessarily think about. They're not at the front of our mind as we go about our day-to-day interactions of people like our wonderful dining hall workers and classmates who we might not share a class with, but we might run into when walking up Dunster Street on the way to classes. And it's that larger sense of community that you can never really replace through the online. But I think the way that we've been able to transition and maintain this sense of connection and community, Zoom obviously is a great platform, and being able to see people face to face and have that connection and to share in our learning with one another. Still just continuing, not quite as normal, but with classes and discussing issues from philosophy to disasters and refugee crises in one of my classes. And also maintaining a sense of schedule. Classes have helped us do that thus far. Many people I've heard in the media and through conversations have talked about how it's become more difficult to keep track of the days of the week for a whole variety of psychological reasons. But I think maintaining consistency of schedule, waking up around the same time, having those regular check-ins, Tuesdays, Thursdays. My blockmates and I have continued community night every Thursday via Zoom, logging into around dinner time to check in with one another. And same thing with Elliot House Hoko, as I mentioned before, every Monday night, we all check in. And even though there's not as many things to discuss, it's allowed us for more connection time and maintaining that sense of community.
That's so great. It's so interesting to hear that. You know, when just going on the theme of serendipity, if I could just ask a follow-up on that, because so much of modern life seems to be directed at engineering serendipity out of our lives. You know, the unpredictable, if you like this movie, you'll also like this movie, rather than going to the library and browsing books and you think you want this book, it's actually the book that's right next to it, above it, is really what you're after. How does this make you think about in our, you know, there will be, I know, a post, you know, COVID-19 world.
Yeah.
How are you thinking about how you'll be maybe bringing serendipity back into your life, given how much we now appreciate it, but also how much modern life sort of tends to sort of move it away because it's not efficient?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think this pandemic that we're going through is something unlike many, if not all of us, have experienced during our lifetimes. And it's certainly given us, well, a lot of challenges to face that we've had to face. An important period of reflection and stepping back from all these things that draw our attention on a day-to-day basis, and have enabled us, to see the benefits of things we might not otherwise have because we're just too narrowly focused on certain things. And so I think a lot of people will hopefully take with us these lessons from these times of appreciating more, being in the moment, appreciating the people who you're physically with and able to connect with. And also, having hopefully moments of spontaneity. I know I was talking with my parents last night as we went for a walk, how so much of what we talk about on a daily basis is just what we do, or what we're going to be doing, what we're looking forward to, or what we did yesterday. And yet, at least for me, my schedule has been relatively monotonous compared to what my daily schedule might look like when on Harvard's campus. And so I think there's this newfound appreciation for those moments of surprise and, oh, I didn't know that this notable speaker was coming to speak with us tonight, and I can't wait to go drop in on it. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll take that time instead of going about my daily life. But I think it has to be a conscious decision and an active choice, because to your point, there are just so many things that draw on our time and can be distractions. But I guess to that point, there's just a lot of larger lessons to be learned, not just for how we live our own lives and days, but for society as well.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I appreciate the way you're talking about how do we sort of change our mindsets and bring something, when something is over, bring it forward and not just default back to our earlier ways of thinking about things. I know that sustainability has been something that you've been really active throughout your time at the college with. And it's one of those things I think many of us talk about that requires a kind of mindset shift. And I was wondering, you know, how have you thought about that in this kind of context? Context changes can sometimes help us reflect on things differently. What's been your sort of sense about how you hope we move forward as a society, you as a generation citizen leader for our society? I'm just wondering how you're thinking about that, if you don't mind sharing that.
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. It's definitely something that's been on my mind. I wrapped up, as I mentioned before, my senior thesis right as this was all starting to emerge as an issue that's at the forefront of our minds. And my senior thesis focused on the role of prioritization in negotiation, but focusing on climate change and negotiations at the UN to address climate change. And I think in seeing how the world has responded, this is a time unlike any other, at least in my memory, where we are being forced to come together to cooperate in a really salient way, in a way that is very clear why it's important for us to cooperate, because the risks, the deaths are very clear in terms of the numbers. It's not nearly as abstract as something like climate change is for many people. And so I think it's important that we look at how how we can carry this message of cooperation and togetherness and unity forward to addressing bigger issues such as climate change. Just one specific thing that I've been thinking about is how we have been, as difficult as it has been for our economy and for many people who've lost their lives, the lives of loved ones, but also lost their livelihoods and their jobs. And it's certainly not sustainable for the economy in the long run. But as we've seen, climate change poses a threat to lives, livelihoods, and the way that our world and our economy operate. And so I think it's important that we have and consider what a paradigm shift might look like if we were to take more extreme actions, such as not traveling to work as often and refraining from travel and changing our purchasing habits, buying more local. There's definitely lots of parallels and lots of opportunity for learning.
Oh, that's such a thoughtful way of looking at it, because I do think that, as you said, many of us can't imagine different ways of being, and yet suddenly we as a society, in order to protect lives, to protect our communities, made a quick shift. And we've learned that actually we maybe find new ways of working with each other, and it may have impact in terms of how often we need to rely on carbon-based approaches to go from one place to another. That actually collective action is something that people are capable of doing, and it's been inspiring to see how many people helping each other at these moments. And I think it maybe pushes against the paradigm that somehow we're all sort of atomistic individuals on our own, maximizing our own sort of kingdoms of our own little minds, but not caring about what's outside the walls of that. But in fact, actually, that's not the condition that we're really in, and that most human beings are really capable of incredible cooperation and adaptive capacity. And I think that's such a wonderful way to think about and reflect of our own capacities and how we can move things forward. It's so good to see you. Thank you for joining me. I just can't tell you how much it means that you took the time out of your day. Please accept my wishes to you and your loved ones for safety and well-being, and and just grateful for you as a student, and looking forward to us seeing each other in person again.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I know that you're having to make many difficult decisions and a lot of important work during this time. And it's not always easy, but it has to be done. And we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, appreciate that too. Thank you. It's a great team.